Fox fans, and welcome to the warm and whimsical world of Fox Under the Moon. I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to show you how you can make your very own wooden fox and moon ornament at home using your Fox Under the Moon DIY kit. Let's get started. So first of all, let's have a little look at what you get inside your kit. It will come packaged like this inside an organza bag with everything you need to make your ornament. So firstly, you'll see we've got the paints at the top here and also the glue, a paintbrush, a piece of twine for hanging your ornament, a wooden moon shape, a wooden fox shape, a backing disc, and then two little discs. Don't lose those, you'll need them later. It's probably a good idea to cover your surface with some tissue paper like this that will protect it a little bit so you don't get paint on it. And then we're actually going to start with the painting. Just before we do, this little step is optional, but in the end pot that says G, that's PVA glue. So if you want to coat all of the wooden decorations, first of all, in a very thin layer of the glue, and leave it to dry overnight, that can help the paint to stick a little better, but it's optional. It's important to make sure the moon is the right way round on the backing disc and that the holes line up before you start working on your project. A good idea to help the two pieces stick together later is to get a pencil and roughly draw a line where the moon will sit, the inside of it, on the circle shape. This means that you can paint the stars and the sky in the background, but leave a thin strip of wood showing to help the two pieces adhere later, because the glue will stick better to the wood than the paint. You don't have to be too careful when painting the backing. You've got black and blue paint provided. You can use either or a mixture of the two. Get yourself some clean water in an old glass jar so that you can rinse your brushes between colours if you want to. You'll see I'm just mixing mine together because I like the effect it gives the sky. If you haven't already coated your wood in PVA glue and let it dry overnight, you might find that you need to do a couple of coats of paint in order to make it a dark enough colour. I'm just doing one coat for the purpose of this tutorial. Wash your brush and then paint the moon. I'm choosing a silver colour for mine, but you can get creative. Be sure to let the paint on each layer dry before doing the next step of the project. All of the paints used in this project are non-toxic, water-based and solvent-free. This means not only will it wash off hands easily with warm soapy water, but it's also safe if little hands are helping out. Next up, we're going to paint the little fox using the brown colour. You have to be quite careful with Mr. Fox because he has some little details lasered into him, so you don't want to get brown paint on where the white bits are supposed to be, so go careful around the details. Again, you might want to add two coats. For the purpose of this tutorial, I'm actually leaving the white parts just the wood effect. I quite like how this looks, but there is white paint provided if you'd like to paint them. You probably will find, because you're painting with a lighter colour, you'll need 2 or 3 coats to make it look an opaque colour. To do the details of the eye, the ears, and the nose, you're going to use the black paint. Now I'm using a tiny piece of paint or a tiny bit of paint on the end of my paintbrush to do his nose there, as you can see, and the same for the eye. I'll bring it a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. If you get paint in the wrong place before it's dried, you can easily wipe it off with the other side of the paintbrush if you make a mess. You'll see me doing this here. Foxes have little black tips on their ears, so I'm just going to add those little details here just to make him look a little bit more realistic. You can also draw a little mouth in a smile shape if you want to. Dab a little of the excess paint off the brush and use the very edge of the brush to create little flecks on the tail that give the impression of fur. You really don't need much paint on your brush for this part, so make sure you haven't got much on. With a fresh piece of kitchen towel, you can now see the backing plate is dried, and you can see here how another coat of paint would be beneficial. For the purpose of this, it doesn't matter though. I'm going to show you now 2 ways to do the stars. First of all, using a toothbrush to create this sort of flecked effect, and you may have done this before on other projects. I'm just putting a tiny bit of paint on the end of my toothbrush, and then it's an old toothbrush, of course, not the one I use every night, and I'm just going to kind of flick that onto the background to add these really tiny little star effects. Now you can do that in the background if you want to, or otherwise I'm going to show you a little bit of a less messy way to do it using the end of the paintbrush. You just dip it very lightly into the pot of paint, and then you can dab it onto the backing plate to make bigger stars. This is actually a really nice effect done on top of the toothbrush effect if you want to add a few bigger pieces or pick out some details. Either is absolutely fine. When you finish with the stars, you can now see how when you lay the moon on top, it gives a lovely effect to the sky, and we've got that little bit of wood left over so the 2 pieces stick together well. You're finished with painting now, and here's all the little pieces together. Now then, remember I told you not to lose the 2 little wooden discs that come with your kit? Well, I'm going to show you what to do with them now. Because the kit is a 3D ornament, so when you stick the 3 pieces of the 3 shapes together, you're going to get a 3D effect. Make sure, of course, that you've got your holes lined up before you plan where anything's going to go, but this is just for demonstration. So you'll see that behind the fox, when he sat on top of the moon, there's a little gap, and there's a little chance that this could cause the ornament to break if pressure was applied. So by putting the 2 little discs behind the pressure points on the fox, his head and his tail, you'll see that that will bridge the gap that's left behind the backing plate, or in front of the backing plate, sorry, behind the fox, and it will just make your ornament a little bit sturdier. This step isn't absolutely necessary, but it is going to be helpful to make sure that when you're packing your decorations away after the holiday season, if you're not leaving them up like me of course, then you're not going to break it while packaging it away. So again, in the end part that says G on it, this is glue, this is not paint. Okay, so it's PVA glue, craft glue or school glue, all the same stuff. So if you, oh, it's a little bit tricky to get into these pots. If you put a little tiny dab on the back, you don't need to go crazy with this. It does dry clear, so if you do get a little bit of excess glue, it isn't going to matter, but you don't need too much, just enough to make sure that it adheres nicely to the back of the fox. And you'll see I'm going to place one little bit here on the back of his head, and I'm going to pop him on a kitchen towel because I'm very messy when it comes to things like this, and you can see I've already made a big splodge of water on my tablecloth. Anyway, I'm going to use the end of the paintbrush to adhere or press down the little disc, and then I'm going to add the other one. And now this one you can kind of choose depending on where you're going to put it, but I'm going to pop mine just where the tail is just wide enough so that it doesn't poke out each side, and you can nudge it along a little bit if you've got it in the wrong place. Okay, now it's time, we're going to keep our glue open and we're going to start sticking all the bits together. So give your moon a good coating on the back. It doesn't have to be really thick again, but especially pay attention to the little end points, the thinner points. Get all of that coated up and then you're ready to stick it down. You don't want to have too much excess glue. Very important, of course, to make sure that the holes line up on your moon so that you can hang it properly when it comes to it. And then I found a clothes peg or a few is quite helpful to clamp it together while it dries. Next, we are going to glue our little fox. Now, it's important to make sure that the glue is already dry where we stuck the little discs on. When it is, you can then go ahead and glue the areas that are going to touch the backing plate. So obviously the 2 little discs, and then along the bottom of his tail and on his bottom. So you're going to pop some glue on there, and then really you can decide where you put this. I'm going to pop mine just so he's right on the edge there, and so the end of the moon doesn't stick out, but you could put him in the middle, you could have him overhanging, entirely up to you. Wherever you're going to pop him, just make sure that the little discs are supporting the tail and the head and not hanging off the edge. Press him down carefully, and then again, if you want to, you can use clothes pegs to just make sure that it's going to clamp together while it dries. When everything's dry and stuck together nicely, you can add your little piece of twine so that you're able to hang your ornament wherever you want to. And there you have it. Now you have your very own Fox Under the Moon inspired ornament that you can hang around your home at Christmas, during the holidays, or if you're a fox lover like me, all year round. I really hope you enjoyed following this tutorial, and if you like Fox Under the Moon, please head over to my website where you'll find all the other foxy goodies that I have in stock at the moment. That's all from me today, folks. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, please remember, you are enough, you are important, and you are loved. Bye, folks.